Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. And what I'm going to discuss today is building your infrastructure for your garden. Normally you would want to do this whenever you start laying out the plans for it. And today we're going to talk about having a water source where you want it. Now, when you start putting your water system in, now this is where mine starts out. I just have one faucet, and I'm trying to water a garden that's it's about 140 feet long. And when you start doing that, if you have to water in new transplants and different things like that, you're dragging a hose all over. Plus, when you run drip line to cut down on your thing, you end up with splitters, and then the more you get, the more splitters you have in here. So what you want to do is get this a little less complicated, get your water sources closer to where you need them. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I have actually my cutoff valve is here in my garden. PVC is not that hard to run, and we'll go over that. And these particular faucets, like these are drain back faucets, so these work good for not having a big problem with maintenance, having to cover faucets whenever it comes wintertime. It costs you a little bit more, and depending on where you're at, you have to have a deeper or a taller faucet, and we'll go into that in a minute, because the freeze depth of your ground. Here in zone 8B, which your zone is normally what you'll go by on that, because that'll tell you what your low temperature is, and then you can get an idea of how long it stays at that low temperature. So the further north you go, or the cooler zones, you'll have to bury your line deeper. Now for here, a foot is just fine. It gets it out of the way of any operations I'm going to do in the ground, and it's past our freeze point. So let's get into it. Okay, the drain back faucet is kind of a simple type faucet. You have a valve controller at the top. This doesn't actually open the valve. It controls a rod that runs down to the bottom of this, and this is actually the valve right here. And if you look, there's a little hole right here. When this valve is closed, it drains back through this hole. Now I'm recycling some of these that I had for another project, but what you do is you bury this valve in deep enough that it's going to be below your frost depth. Now what I like to do is I use a piece of septic line, just a lightweight, and I'll use pea gravel. And once I get my pipe all plumbed in down here in my hole, and I'll have this set over this pipe, and what I'll do is I put pea gravel in the bottom. That gives you a medium for the water to drain through whenever you shut the valve, and it can drain back. And I'll also put pea gravel into this pipe, and what that does is give you a certain amount of insulation factor. So if for some reason you're using this in cool weather and it doesn't have a chance to drain all the way back, it'll still be partially insulated. So that's something you might want to consider. A lot of people just leave these out, but also what it does is it gives it a little bit more sturdy foundation there, in case you accidentally pull on a hose or something. You're not going to bend this pipe here and affect your operation. Then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to dig a hole. This is the hole where I'll be mounting my faucet. I strategically located it so that it would be where I'm going to set up my little greenhouse. And I'll also, at the same time, like I'm talking about infrastructure, I'll run a power line out here, and that way if I decide I want to use electricity for, say, a little electric heater or a fan or something like that in winter or summer, I'll have that option. Even a light. Maybe might want to come out here later in the evening and be able to do some work, planting seeds or whatever it be. So take those things in consideration. Now what first you're going to have to do is dig a hole, and like I say, mine doesn't have to be about a foot deep, and you're going to have to dig it all in to where you want your valves to be for your faucets. Now, at this time, I'm going to add 3 faucets. So what I've got is I'm running the main line from my source, and I'll come down here and I tee off so I can go to that direction and put in a faucet. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to put 2 more faucets down the line here. And so that'll give me adequate water so I won't be dragging hoses far, and so I can actually split off my drip line. So let's get started on showing how this PVC is put together. Okay, first thing, we're going to kind of simplify digging ditches. Now, I know a lot of you know about digging ditches, but for those that aren't familiar, your equipment. Now, when you're digging ditches, you don't want to use your standard garden spade. And if you needed a real wide one, that might be all right, but you don't want to use that. Now, they make a sharpshooter. This is what a lot of people prefer. Now, me particular, this is not my tool of choice. Now, if there's 2 of us digging, I might use it, but that's not what I prefer. Now, you can pick this up at most of your home improvement stores. This is one of the best ditch digging shovels I've ever come across. It's sturdy. Now, this one's a little loose at the handle. It's been left out a few times, but this thing is, I bought this back in 05, so you can figure this thing is over 15 years old. It's excellent. It still holds up like it is. It really needs to have the rivet pulled and the handle stuck in a little bit deeper. But with this one, you can actually dig the hole, and it's narrow. It's easy to push in the ground. It's got a good footrest. It doesn't bend like this on hard dirt. And when you clean the bottom of the hole, its angle is just perfect. I mean, I'm standing upright, and I can just slide and I can take that dirt out. So when you're going to dig, it's best if you have the proper tool. Spend the extra money, go ahead and get this. When you're working with PVC, one tool that's really valuable to have, now you can use a hacksaw to cut PVC, but these PVC cutters, they work real well, give you a good clean cut that you don't have to mess with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rig this faucet up. Now, being I'm putting a sleeve over it, as you can see, you put it on first, and now I'm going to put my adapter fitting so I can go from my 1-inch line to here. Now, a lot of people would use Teflon tape. I prefer to use pipe joint compound. To me, it just I don't have as many problems with leaks and stuff like that. Now, sometimes it separates, so make sure you stir it up, and it's just a matter of putting some on the pipe. Now, a lot of people don't like messing with this is because they get it on their hands, and it makes kind of a mess, but we don't worry about that. But anyway, this makes a good seal. We'll put some on there. We'll close it back up, and then we'll just screw this in. Now, you want to be careful when you're using PVC threaded fittings, because sometimes it's easy for them to cross thread, and so you want to take your time getting it to start, because otherwise you're going to cut a crooked thread. It doesn't take much of a burr. Most stuff is in good shape, but sometimes it's not, and you end up with a burr. Now, you can use rib type pliers, or some people call them water pump pliers, that's adjustable. Rib type pliers, and you could grab it with these and tighten this up. Now, I'm just going to use a pipe wrench to do this. Now, it doesn't have to be super tight because it is plastic. You're not going to tighten it like you would some type of metal fitting, because otherwise you're going to end up putting stress on it, and it's going to end up failing. So what we're going to do is we're going to run this up good and snug, and if you're not familiar with the tightness, that it needs to be, you might want to take and not bury your pipe until after you've finished pressure testing your line, because if you get it too loose and then you end up with it leaking and it's underground, well, that could create a problem and you have to come back and dig it up. But anyway, that's all it is to it. This is here. Now I'm ready to start gluing stuff up. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm actually setting this deeper than my line, because I don't want a whole lot of this sticking up. I only want a certain amount. I want it to be nice and sturdy in the ground. Now they make two versions of this. Well, actually probably more than that, but what's commonly in our area, you might find a 4-foot drainback faucet, or you might find a 5-foot drainback faucet. And that's the difference in the height. Can serve two purposes, but the main reason is that you have extra length so you can bury it deeper if your freeze line is deeper, because you don't want your valve freezing up underground. So in our area, 4 foot is plenty good. In fact, like I say, we don't get a freeze even a foot deep. So what I'll do is I'll end up putting this about 18 inches or so in the ground, and so it's going to be deeper than my line, which is about 1 inch. So I'm going to have to put a couple of connectors here. What I'm going to do first, I'm going to cut me a short piece of PVC so you can see how this tool works. And all it is a matter of squeezing it and then open it up, and it'll catch. It's got a little thing here, catches the next groove, and we keep doing this until we cut this piece off of here, and then it gives a nice cut. Now you can, if you have a little lip or something, you can come back and clean that up with a pocket knife or something, but I just need a piece long enough to fit here. And if you're going to measure this roughly, you can figure the distance from right about there till about there. You can see inside here there's a lip that's as deep as it's going to go, and in here it's as deep as it's going to go there. So depending on how critical your measurements are, you'll want to take that in consideration. This is plenty fine. What I'll do is I'll take and make up these connections, and then I'll show you how this is done. And plus, you want to make sure that when you make your connections up, that your faucet is turned the direction you want it. You don't want to put them on and then find out you got your faucet the wrong way, and maybe not be able to readjust it and have to cut pipe loose and go back. Okay, whenever you're putting these together, you want to use a primer on this, and you want to use a glue. Now this primer is purple. They do make a clear one. The purple is real nice, is because you can see it. You can see it whenever you coat whatever you're fixing to put together. You can actually see where it's applied. But you want to clean these joints. You just want to run that around in there. Now you want to make sure that they don't get set in the dirt or something afterwards. But you clean these up, and it's the same with your pipe. You want all the pieces that you're putting together clean, and you want them clean back far enough that they're going to how far they're going to make up. You want a good connection. If you don't clean this, it's possible for this pipe to separate, and so if you get a lot of pressure on it, or you move it just a little bit, you'll break the joint, and then it's going to come apart. So what we'll do is we'll get all these cleaned up. Like I say, it's a simple process, and you can see how it eats all the stuff off the outside. This is preparing it so that you'll get a good bond. It takes off any coatings and anything that might cause the glue knot to make a connection. Okay, on your glues, now you have a bunch of different glues, and you need to be aware. Now this here is a hot glue. It's fast. they make them rain or shine. This one here kind of works the same way as a rain or shine. That if there's a little bit of moisture, it'll go ahead and make a good connection, because a lot of times when you're taking apart a line and you've got water and you let most of it stop, but you might get a little bit there, you want a good seal. But make sure, now this is good up to 6-inch pipe, but a lot of your glues and usually they color code the cans. Red one is for up to, I don't know, maybe 2-inch, and then you get to bigger ones and you've got a green can. But read on there and make sure that your can is good for the size of pipe you're making a connection on. And like I say, this is a hot one, so it doesn't take long. It seals up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a connection here on this one. I'm just putting glue on both pieces. We're going to push this together and we're going to turn it. A lot of times when you put this together, if you don't give it just a little bit of twist, it'll want to back itself back out. So I always give it a little bit of twist whenever I do it. Now we're going to make up this other end, and on this one particularly, we want to make sure that our end is the right direction for putting our joint together. So we want it to be faced exactly the same angle as the other one, because we're coming down, we're coming back up. Now what we'll do is we'll put this little section in here, and then we're ready to make this piece up onto our faucet. Okay, I've got this set up like I want. I've taken and I've tested it to make sure that it's going to go down far enough. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and make up my pipeline that's going to go out, and then I'll put pea gravel in here. So let me go ahead and make that up. All right, now I got everything in place. I pour gravel down. At the bottom. I get it around the pipe. Now make sure your pipe's kind of centered. Like I say, I use this for stability of my faucet and gives a little bit more insulation in cold weather. So now all I need to do is backfill this hole with my dirt and continue running my water line to the next place. Now what I want to address too, now while I'm doing this, I'm running this electric line right here along with it. Now, depending on where you are and how your local ordinances are and stuff like that, you may or may not be able to accomplish this job, because I know if you're in town and even in a lot of the counties, this might have to be done by a certified electrician. Now where I'm at, and I've got plenty of experience at running this, I know which type of cable to get. I know what size cable to get to run this. But if you don't think this is beyond your capabilities, well, you can go ahead and tackle a project like this. It's the same thing with the plumbing. You might have to have a registered plumber in order to run your line. But of course, there are a lot of things you can do to drop the cost. Like say, you might dig your ditches, you might go ahead and buy your supplies and just get them to put it all together. But realize that this job isn't that hard, and when you're setting up your garden spot, go ahead and set it up right so you don't have to come in and start digging stuff up after you've got everything prepared. That's kind of the thing here. Everything's getting changed around, so I'm doing all these preliminary things so that it'll be right once I get finished.